Interested in a sport that is sexy, an activity that builds confidence, strength, and fitness. About how some North Queenslanders formed a new national sporting federation that is part of the international push to get this really physical and challenging activity into the Olympics? Of course you are. Welcome to Northern Vibe. I'm Matt Maloney, and tonight we're shining a spotlight on some really obscure but really cool pastimes. This is going to be interesting, and it's really, really physical. Tonight, I've got three guests on. I've got Sophia Warren from Pole Play Cairns Studio, Andi Mead, owner of Pole Fitness Cairns, Dr. David Wilson, pole athlete and founding member of the Australian Pole Sports Foundation. Yes, we're talking about pole sports / dancing. So, listeners, thanks very much for tuning in. If you enjoy this, please follow Northern Vibe. Share the interview if you've enjoyed it. Do so with a comment. People really like it when you say, I liked whatever it is about the interview that you like. And if you have any queries, I'll be monitoring the questions and comments. So for any questions, please ask. Make any comments. And something I really like is tell me where you're from. So quick biographies. Sophia Warren, she's the lady in the top left-hand corner, has a long history in dance and performance. She's done floor dance, belly dance, burlesque, circus, cabaret, yoga. She trained with Circus Oz and the National Institute of Circus Arts. She trained with Fat Chance belly dance, burlesque performers, and is also the owner and an instructor at Cairns Pole Play Studio. The delightful Andi Mead is the owner and instructor at Pole Fitness Cairns, bottom left-hand corner. She's been polling for 8 years. She's from London originally, although you wouldn't tell from the accent. She's a qualified motorcycle mechanic. She loves BMW bikes. She also makes coffee for a living for the past few years. David Wilson is his pole adventure / addiction started in 2013 after being introduced to his first pole class. He really loves the core strength that pole requires. He's a strong believer in the positive influence on self-confidence, the self-image, and the personal development that pole provides. He performs together with his doubles partner Tasman. And Dave also has a PhD in biochemistry. He's technically Dr. David, and he's got an MBA and works at JCU here in Cairns. I'm actually going to interview him next month. His stuff is really, really cool, his specialization. So, look, first, I just want to say hello, Sophia.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Okay, g'day, Andi.
Hello.
And Dave.
Hey, Matt, how are you going?
Good. Is it okay if I call you Dave? I don't have to use your title.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, good. It's just that by way of explanation, you have earned it. So, like, I'm not being ironic or flippant with it. Like, it's really cool. Look, first I'm going to ask a general question of all of you. Now, how do you feel about these quaint people who insist on dancing and engaging in sports with their feet on the ground? I think it's kind of weird myself, but I'd like comments from all of you in regards to that. And we might start off with Dave.
Well, where to start?
It is odd, really. But look, all jests aside, it's such a physical. I've never done it, but just by looking at it, and I'm going to share a quick photograph just to kind of like show people. It really is a phenomenally physical sport. Like for two people to be able to do that and sustain it at the height of my fitness, there is no way I would have been able to do that. And like, back in the day, I was, I was kind of relatively fit and I just would not have been able to do that. And I bet that all of you have had muscles aching that non-pole people don't really exist. So my first serious question I'll put to Sophia, and then I'll get you all to answer. I suppose we'll just go anti-clockwise. What is it that you like about pole dancing and what does it do for you?
Oh, so many things. To me, I came from a aerial and belly dance background really, and other performance art. And to me, the pole it combines aerial dance with the ability to come down to the floor whenever you like. So it's really accessible like that. I love the strength it gives you, the creative expression, and the community that it comes with, I think is a really important part of it all.
Andy, would you talk to that?
Pretty much. Like, I think a lot of us have a very similar experience in that it's very multifaceted in what it gives us and what it can provide for us. I started because I needed a way of getting fit, and I'm not a gym type person. That's not my style. It's not something that keeps me interested or entertained long enough to actually reap any benefits. I needed to go to a class, and pole dancing was something that was around the corner. And mainly what I got from it was pole fitness. So dancing is something that that is more personal to me in a lot of ways. But what I found was not only was I getting incredibly fit, but it was the gymnastics that I had always wanted to do that I was never able to do. So when I was a very, 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 very eensy weensy, I tasted gymnastics and I thought it was great, but I was unable to continue with that because of the cost, because of the distance that was required to travel to get to anywhere. So it was inaccessible to me as a kid. And then when I was an adult and able to move freely, gymnastics for adults is really, really, really hard to come by. So I just sort of gave up on that idea for forever, really. It never occurred to me that I'd come back to that. And then when I found pole, I realized that it was exactly that. It was gymnastics as well as dancing. It was fitness. It was building flexibility. And the other thing that was quite surprising was the community. It was the people that supported each other in such a phenomenal way. And, you know, I want to talk a little bit about that a bit later as well, just in terms of the last competition that we held here and the fact that I'd gone to dinner with the person that I was competing against. But,
wow, that's cool.
It's very,
and
very
Dave, mate, tell us why you.
How did I get into it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of girls that I worked with had signed up to do some classes, and they needed an extra person to make up numbers. And I moved to Cairns the year before, and I wasn't doing any sporting activities or anything. And I've always sort of been involved in something. I used to play a fair bit of touch football, but when I moved to Cairns, I didn't really continue with that because I sort of realized that it was more the people I was playing with in Brisbane than the actual game. So I wasn't really doing anything other than sitting around putting on weight. And I thought the classes were supposed to be for 8 weeks, and so I thought I'll give it a go. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You know, if I hate it on the first class, I just won't go for the next 7 weeks. And so, yeah, went to the first 8 weeks, continued going. The 2 girls that I went with stopped. And yeah, 8 years later, I'm still doing it. So, and I've found it quite revolutionary for myself. Like I couldn't lift myself up the pole when I first started. So I had to build the strength up right from the word go. I have no dance background, no gymnastics background. And that probably shows a fair bit in when I do things. I have no flexibility whatsoever. But it's been able to build up the strength. And I think the thing for me with pole is that you never ever run out of goals. Like there is always something to achieve. No matter how good you are, you look at any of the pole people in the world, they're always working towards something. So it's a never-ending dream of achieving things, and so you just keep progressing. And Sophia and Andy have highlighted the community as well. That was possibly the biggest surprise for me, being a little bit different in the pole community. So when there's more males involved now, but when I first started, it wasn't very common. I used to go to, there used to be a thing called the Australian Pole Festival that was run on the Gold Coast every year. The first one of those I went to, I was one of 3 males amongst 120 people. But you know, now there's more there, and I didn't feel excluded at all. Like everybody's welcomed at the same level, and it does end up sounding a little bit like a cult kind of catch cry, but it's kind of like, it's kind of for everybody. Not everyone will enjoy it, but everyone can take part. So we actually have a competitor coming to our competition on Sunday, who was born with only one arm, and she's competing in our parapole competition, and she is an inspiration. So yeah.
If anyone wants to follow her on Instagram, it's Debzilla, and she's awesome. She is awesome.
All right, I'm going to look that up and show that up. But it turns out what the worst, you know, you kind of ask yourself rhetorically that question, what's the worst that could happen? Well, you can end up in a kind of quasi-cult and an addict to yourself up a pole, it turns out, Dave. But getting, you know, some addictions can be really, really positive. And that's cool that you've done that. And like for me as an outsider looking in, it combines like the phenomenal fitness involved, phenomenal. At the height of my fitness, like in the kind of late 90s, when I was running, swimming, like a regular day for me, it'd be 40K on the bike, every second or third day, at least a K, normally 2K running, and alternatively swimming, at least a K, normally 2. And like, that's pretty fit. You know what I mean? You know, I was the kind of person who could probably go out and do a triathlon and finish somewhere in the middle. Okay, not so bad. There's no way I could do what you guys do. Like it's got dance, as you said, it's got calisthenics, it's got gymnastics, it's got a touch of yoga, it's got but it's got all, it clicks on absolutely everything. And I was watching this stuff thinking to myself, man, my muscles that I don't even know that I've got are aching just watching that. So look, we'll kind of Dave, before I say anything else, one of the viewers, Agnieszka, you are a goddess. This simply would not have happened with you. This is going to be a ridiculously cool interview. I can just feel it. Cousin, sister, thank you very much. Dave, do you have, big waves to Agnieszka. Yes, rule. Dave, do you have students? Or do you just kind of?
I am the student. No, I don't teach, Paul.
Okay.
Yet.
Well, that being the case, I'm going to aim this next question at Andy and Sophia. I'll get Andy to go first. Look, can you tell us, you know, you both have students. What do your students tell you that they like? Like what kind of sucks them into it? And after their first lessons and their eyes are like this, what are the things that they tell you? Can you talk us through that?
Different things for different people. Again, it on a broad spectrum, it is the strength, the flexibility, and the community. But each individual has a very different experience and comes in from a different standpoint. So some people have come in because they are lost, because they've got nothing else in their life and it feels very empty, and it gives them a sense of purpose. I've had one person tell me that. I've had someone else who has said they've never had so much fun in their life, and they just come back again and again because it's so much fun. I've had people who, you know, like myself, I've never been stronger in my life. And I did martial arts, I've done rock climbing, I've done a lot of different things, and I have never, ever been stronger in my life. And a lot of people say to me, you know, just being able to pull myself up after not even being able to do a sit-up. So a lot of people come from that. But I think for the most part, the thing that really touches people is the community. Again, it keeps coming back to that. It keeps coming back to, I come back here for you guys, for the students that, you know, that come back every week, for the instructors who give them as much as we possibly can, because I think that's your job as an instructor, is to give somebody every tool that you have in your possession to be able to use for themselves.
Great, mate. That's seriously, that's way cool. Sophia, can you know, I know that's been rather complex, but if you've got anything to add, I'd really like to hear it.
Oh yeah, look, I can agree with all that. I hear from a lot of our students that it's their happy place. They walk in the door. A lot of our students, it's the only 1 hour of the week that they have to really focus on themselves. A lot of mums, they're working full time, they're looking after the rest of the family. They come to the studio and they can just think about themselves for an hour, and it's really rewarding. Movement, I truly believe, is medicine. We process things when we move creatively. The sense of achievement that people get, Dave mentioned, is a really powerful thing. We get a lot of new students coming in thinking that they're going to be expected to do things that are beyond them, which they're not. So they tend to come in really nervous, and then by the time they walk out the door an hour later, they're just beaming because of the things they've been able to achieve, and they've tapped into their own sense of strength, and they've been supported and acknowledged, and it's really quite powerful.
Yeah,
most definitely. And confidence, that was, I think, the one thing that neither of us have actually said, even though we've described it in everything that we have said. Confidence is like that's the umbrella term, because suddenly people believe in themselves, because like you say, like Sophia said, you suddenly realize you can do something you never thought you'd be able to do.
Yep, totally makes sense. And look, really quick, it's not regress in the truest sense of the word, but Dave indicated that it's kind of like a feminine dominated sport / activity over here in Australia and in the West, and that does seem to me disproportionately to be true. But I saw the original stuff, like I saw quite a bit of this when I lived in China, and disproportionately over there it's male. I've never been in India, but like just looking at the photographs again, like disproportionately, it's a male thing. So it just goes to show it's strange that you get these cultural associations with something, but it's like you got to be because in China, it's like, dude, you got to be strong and tough. Well, that's manly. It's like, well, you got to be strong and tough, and it's feminine. You know what I mean? Like it's just strange how we put these kind of different values on stuff culturally, but. Look, Sophia, if it's okay, like what I'd like to do to keep the flow of conversation going, because we've got 3 people on the interview, I'll get you to tell us about the roots of the activity and where it came from. And after Sophia is finished, Andy and Dave, I'll get you to tell us how it evolved from that. So, Sophia, if you can kind of lead off with this history.
Sure. So you mentioned briefly the roots of pole. Really, as far as we know, it started in the 12th century in India, where really it was entirely men, and it's still practiced today. It's called malakam, and they work with a tapered and oiled wooden pole, and they really used it traditionally to prepare themselves for wrestling as a strength building, apparatus. These days, from what I've heard, in modern India, it has become a sport in its own right. Then some 2,000 years later, you have it popping up in rural China, possibly, apparently, somewhat to do with climbing trees. We don't really know. And then the story goes that, the Chinese acrobats, really took it and ran with it. Chinese sticky pole you can still see today in a lot of the big circuses like Cirque du Soleil and Circus Oz. And it's actually had a bit of a rebirth with the modern pole industry as well. And then in the 40s, 30s and 40s, 20s, 30s, 40s, with the touring carnivals in America, the story is that you had the Chinese acrobats with their poles, and you had the girl shows and the burlesque. And at some point, apparently, some of the carny girls figured out they could make a bit of extra coin swinging around the tent poles after dark, right? And you get this combination of the girl shows and the acrobatics. Then you have the demise of the carnivals with the advent of television, and the rise of the strip clubs. I'm not sure when or who or where someone decided to put a pole in the stage for the girls to hang on to. I'm pretty sure it was initially just a prop to hold on to. And then you have the modern strip industry, where you have thousands of women doing 15, 20-minute stage sets, you know, a number of times a night, who just got bored, you know, schmoozing around, and started to put some real tricks and pole work and acrobatics into their performances. Then in the 90s, you had pioneers of the modern pole industry like Sophia Warren and Jamila DeVille and Pantera T. Blacksmith, who started teaching non-strippers to pole. There was, or there is, an American actress called Sheila Kelly, who founded the S Factor movement system after she had a bit part in a movie playing a pole dancing stripper and got really fit and loved it. There was recently a documentary actually made about her style of movement and the classes that she runs. It's very kind of dance therapy based, and they don't do a lot of pole, but it's certainly part of what they do. It's called Strip Down, Rise Up, if anyone wants to watch it. It's quite different to most modern pole studios, I have to say. And so, you know, some of the first pole studios started really popping up, like dedicated pole studios started popping up around the world about 18, 20 years ago. The first in Australia was Bobby's Pole Studio in Sydney. And as far as I know, we were the second here in Cairns. And since then, it's really just gone boom. There are pole studios all over the world popping up in small towns here, you know, here, there and everywhere. And it's been amazing, I have to say, watching the industry grow. And I'm really excited to see where it's going to go from here.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm an outsider looking in, and it excites the hell out of me. And where it's going to go, God willing, is the Olympics.
Yes.
So look, I'll get Andy and David, and so Dave doesn't feel too left out over there. I'll get him to kind of like start off discussing how it evolved from this form of fitness / entertainment to a fitness regime to becoming recognised as perhaps one of the most challenging sports on the face of the earth, with high levels of physicality and skill. So Dave, if you can talk to that, and Andy, if you have anything to offer, if you have anything to add after that, please just jump in.
So it was around about 2008, I think. Katie Coates, who was a pole dancer in the UK, started looking at getting more regulation, I guess, and more structure into pole for pole competitions, and making it more of a fitness kind of and gymnastics kind of clone. It is quite similar to gymnastics, so much so that the International Pole Sports Federation that Katie managed to set up, that is running, and that the Australian Pole Sports Federation that I'm part of is the Australian representative of that. They actually had to sign a contract with the International Gymnastics Federation to agree on certain aspects so that there wasn't too much crossover. So there's certain rules in place to stop there being any confusion over whether it's a gymnastics routine or a pole sports routine. That's taken a little bit of time to get up and running and going and the like, but it's growing. It's becoming more popular. And a few years ago, the IPSF managed to get it's called GASF, which is the Global Association of International Sporting Federations. They put certain sports under observer status, which allows, that's one of the steps in getting into the Olympics. So as part of that, the IPSF has to get pole sports recognised as an official sport in a certain number of countries while under observer status. And there's a whole bunch of other things that they have to adhere to, one of which is a very strict anti-doping regime. So they have to be part of the World Anti-Doping Authority. And so, yeah, it's become far more regulated, I guess, from that perspective. I think that's actually caused a few problems in Australia as far as interest goes in the actual sports side, where Australia is quite big with the more exotic side. So a lot of studios tend to focus on those sorts of classes. But you know, we're making progress, and the sports side is not for everybody, just because it's a very brutal judging regime. So to take part in the sports thing, you have to have quite a thick skin, because they're incredibly strict and very harsh on any perceived imperfection. So yeah, and that's where we're at the moment.
But that's before. Sorry, Andy, if I can make an observation before you jump in, because I know you.
Sure.
I can see that, and I really want to hear it. I'm sure our listeners do too. But that's kind of both. I don't see these things as mutually exclusive. So you've got this. Really,
No, they're not at all.
Yeah.
That's one of the frustrating things from our committee's perspective, is that it's not one or the other. You can do both.
And this is exactly what I was about to say. You know, it is not something that you can, you know, if you want to partake in this competition, you must follow these rules. And that is the same for every competition that you might join in any sport that you might partake in.
Totally.
So, you know, the rules that we follow for this particular comp, which is happening next Sunday, you know, you can't follow these rules and win any other competition, because they're going to be judging via a very different criteria. And I think there was a bit of a rift that was caused when the IPSF, you know, in the first few years of them launching, you know, there was this hashtag that came about, which was strength not stripping. And so there was lots of rifts, because people were saying, well, why are you disrespecting one side of it? Why are you saying that it is this and not that? You know, and, you know, maybe what this particular person is doing is strength and not stripping, but to hashtag it in that way is to diminuate what somebody else might be doing, you know, and it's suggesting that stripping is bad and wrong. It is saying that you don't want to be associated with that. And whilst, you know, there is a very big difference between what you know, what two different people might be doing on any given day, that doesn't mean that those two people might not want to cross over sometimes. A lot of us started on the one hand and then have, you know, dabbled and explored and you know, really come to love the other side of it. And you know, and I find it's a very delicate path to tread with regards to teaching minors, and also with having people involved in sport that might be you know, mentally challenged, people with disabilities, you know, people who might not be able to take responsibility for their own actions. You know, we cannot be seen to be sexualizing these people, and that's not what we're doing at all. But that doesn't mean that when somebody does want to explore their own sexuality, that's not their business to do that. So I think there is there was a big rift there. And also a lot of people, on the other hand, were saying, you know, regardless of anything to do with whether it's exotic or whether it's not, or whether it's correct to do or whether it isn't, was to say that to impose so many strict rules and regulations would kill the sport for a lot of people who were unable to achieve those standards of, as Dave said, perfection. you know, because they deduct you points if you're, you know, for each foot, if your toes aren't pointed every single time. They deduct points for if you're facing slightly the wrong way. They deduct points for so many different things. It is incredibly hard. I've actually got my my code of points here. This is the book that we have to read through in order to really understand what's going on if we're choosing to compete in this particular competition. And my answer to that was always, you know, if anybody who's competing at Olympic level is an aspiration, is somebody that you can look up to. It's not to say that just because I'm not Michael Phelps means I'm never going to swim.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't believe that it can kill that desire to partake in a sport for anybody, to see elite level athletes competing at an elite level competition.
Totally.
And look, the goal of the IPSF is not to you know, eliminate people using their skills to express themselves through their dance. I mean, they want that as much as anybody does. And they've given the opportunity for that as well, because within the IPSF competitions, there's the pole sport competition, but there's also an artistic competition, which is judged completely separately. And yes, you're not allowed to, so they're very big on reducing the sexuality side of it. And that's purely because they're trying to get, or they want minors so involved. So they want the youth aspect. And so when you've got a pre-novice category from ages 6 to 9, you don't want to necessarily expose them to gratuitous sexuality or violence or any of that sort of stuff. So it becomes a family-friendly exercise. But
I really want Sophia's take on this.
Thank you. I think
hang on. But before I do, if I can just make a really quick observation that may help structure and frame the conversation. And I know this is an obtuse, weird thing to say, but it is Northern Vibe. It's what we do. I know quite a few musicians, and I know this one guy who's a jazz purist. Like, he is obsessed with jazz. Perhaps he's a magnificent jazz player, ridiculously good at what he does. And the fact that he's willing to categorize and say, jazz is this, it's here and it's here. It's this, but it's not this. No, that's swing. No, that's this. And these things to me seem sort of like arcane points. But it kind of assists him to really be able to get really, really good at something because he specifies it. Because specifying something has its negative characteristics. It means it's like, you didn't point your toes, dude. That wasn't perfect. And that is going to have the effect of putting some people off. And it is going to impact on the artistic, chaotic, I suppose, nature of that sort of stuff. But by the same token, it kind of helps, because once you give something a framework, and here's the strange interrelationship between framing, defining rules, and assisting making something better. And look, another really quick example is I read this excellent book by this guy, Cecil Lewis, who was the last surviving World War I ace. And he was like, obviously being in World War I, he was in the early days of flying where you wake up, yawn, stretch, jumped in a plane, flew out, and like he had his patrols to do and everything else. But like if he didn't, if he felt like doing extra flights to go out to fly and shoot at people, he did that. And right after the Second World War, like you could just grab a plane, take it to Spain, which is what he did, and start the company. You didn't have to call in to land, you'd do any of this sort of stuff. And once this regulation started, it kind of killed him. He really hated it. But by the same token, he understood how it actually made him a better flyer in some ways. And he talks about that in some of his books. But enough from me, Sophia. I want to hear your take on this, please.
Yeah. Look, I think it's really important to recognise and honour the history of the industry and the pioneers of the industry. And I have to point out that some strippers are athletes and gymnasts as well. And a lot of polers in the world who dance sexy style exotic pole are not strippers either, but they can also be incredibly athletic. And I think it's also very important to recognize that the pole is a vertical bar. It's a piece of aerial apparatus, and you can make it whatever you like. You can dance a tragic piece on it. You can dance a comedic piece on it. You can make it completely sporty. You can make it sexy. You can make it theatrical. And I think all styles are valid. And the International Pole Sports Federation, what they're doing with these championships is not only regulating the competitions a lot better than any other I've seen. And this is the third national Australian pole competition that we have. There are two others, the Australian Pole Championships and Miss Pole Australia, or Miss Pole Dance Australia, sorry. It's really well structured. It is legitimising the sport. It does have divisions for children and teenagers and masters 40 plus and 50 plus and a para division, which none of the other Australian pole competitions have. And I think it's very important to distinguish between different styles of pole, but still respect them all. I love them all personally. I think they all have their place.
Absolutely, and we can all see the nodding here. So, being an amateur, this leads me into the, into the next question, and I'll shoot it at Andy if that's all right. Can you talk about the different styles? And I know you got your rule book there, and I'm actually really keen to discuss the technicalities. But before we get into that, can you just openly discuss? Well, there's these different styles and what they kind of mean to you, and then I'll throw that out to obviously Dave and Sophia, and not just the regulatory styles. By way of example, a comparative example, tango is a form of dance. And against the paso doble and strictly ballroom and all these kind of things, but they're all different styles of dance. So can you talk to the different styles?
That's a bit of a weird question, but I do just want to backtrack a little bit. You said you're an amateur in this. That would suggest that you're coming to classes. Is that right? Are you coming to do a class?
I've got to be.
You have to come.
Really I kind of want to.
Otherwise, you're an outsider. You're not an amateur. You're a spectator.
Yeah. I'm an outsider with so many different things. That kind of
So you said you're.
We're in our own ways. We're all priors. But to answer the question, I can't promise it.
Oh, come on.
Hey, look, I'm pole curious.
Then come to a class. You never know until you try. I've always said.
I'm not knocking it.
Always said it's not for everyone, but it can be for anyone, and you never know until you try.
Well, I just started by way of explanation. I've just finished a job where I was a 24-hour rotational shift worker for 30 years, and it was kind of wrecking my health. And I knew I had to get a degree of fitness again, and we got one of those little down because I live in Brinsmead, not far from the Lorridon Drive Park, and they've got one of those little things where you do the chin ups and the lift ups, and I don't even know what the gym names for these things are, but I just go and do this. And I hadn't done a chin up for since it was a really long time, and I went down on the first day of non-shift work, and I finished, did it, man. I was so proud of myself. And I went, I'm going to do some chin-ups. Jumped on this thing. I couldn't do 3.
Sounds like you need to come to pole classes.
I can do 15. And
I'm sure myself and Sophia would be happy to do you a free trial class.
Yeah.
Flick us a message and come along. But anyway, back to the original question that you'd asked. In terms of style, just because otherwise we're going to talk about random stuff all night. But in terms of style of pole, it's a bit of a weird question because it depends where you're coming from, because you can dance any style that you can dance on the ground with a pole. You can put any music, like Sophia mentioned before. A piece can be any sort of feeling. You can be emotive in so many ways. You can be very, non-dancey in so many ways. But I think what we have in terms of elements, We have elements where you are on the pole doing transitions without touching the ground. You have elements where you are transitioning from being on and off the pole. And you have transitions and movements where you are not touching the pole at all. So you have various different things that you can do with it. You have entire dances that you can do just with the bottom part of the pole, where you're still mostly on the ground, but interacting with the pole, using it to pull you, push you, spin around and get you up off the ground, take you down to the ground. But we call that low flow. And that's something that I personally love to watch, and I'm really bad at doing. But because it just requires so much grace and flow and a really hidden strength, which when you look at them, a lot of people that are really good at doing it, when you look at them doing it, everything just looks effortless and you're just sort of melting around the pole. It's really, really hard, and I adore it. But yeah, what I really get into are the aerial transitions. So that's where you're doing things up on the pole and transitioning from one shape to a different shape without touching the ground. That's something that I really enjoy doing, which is why the higher the pole, the better for me.
That is,
but, you know, and I dance to a lot of different music, and I have a background in salsa and Latin dance. So I often will play those types of music and do the sorts of footwork that I would be doing with a partner, but with the pole. And you can, you know, I've seen some pole tango combinations that are really beautiful. I've done a bachata pole thing before as well, which I know someone is trying to convince Agnieszka to do a salsa one as well.
yeah.
So
the pole who jumps on the poles. It's this Polish girl does that.
Polish dancing, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, she's a legend, man. I love her so much. And Tess, because I've just got one of the comments. I'll jump on that pole if I see you jump on that pole. Okay.
It's up to you.
Yeah,
it's up to you to grow our community.
Quid pro quo, baby. But all right, man. That's actually. Oh, mate, Dave. I shouldn't kind of leave you there. Does anyone else, Dave, Sophia, got anything else to add to that?
I don't think so.
All right.
I mean, a lot of what Andy spoke about, I'm not very good at. So yeah. No, but look, I want to go on to the cool names of the moves, but I know that's going to lead us into the technical side of stuff. I actually want to plug the hell out of these national championships that have been. So, all right, let's plug them. Dave, talk to me. Australian Pole Sports Championships, Sunday, 27th of June at Cairns Basketball, Court 1. I think the doors open at 9:30 a.m. to the public, free entry, and it should be wrapping up somewhere around 3 o'clock. And during the lunch break, we've got a drumming exhibition as well.
No way.
Some drummers coming in.
That is ridiculously cool. I love this. Look, I'm going to show people how to find out, because like we know everyone forgets about this sort of stuff. Okay, I use this site called Cairns Calendar. They're not paying me or anything like that. All right, this is just the site that I use. So you Google cairnscalendar.com because they've got all this really, really cool stuff on it. So let's go to the date. What was it, the 27th, bro?
Yep.
All right, so obviously that's the month kind of thing. So let's click on that sucker. So we know a lot of stuff. And the beautiful thing about this calendar is, because I have to be honest, I do love pole dancing, but like I just love all the cool things that are going on in our like little community. So you click on there, here's all the cool things that's happening. All righty, pole dance championships, boom, there it is. So if you want to find out what's going on, jump on a Cairns calendar and it will tell you all the things that are happening on that day. And if you're not sure what to do, me personally, seriously, I'm going to be there. Like that is going to be uber cool. And look at those ridiculously fit people doing that stuff there, just making me feel shame. So yeah, look, thank you. We're going to have to really encourage people to get down there, have a look, And can we talk about, and there's so much I want to talk about. And by the way, we're 45 minutes in. I want to talk about how this, the push to become a sport. I want to talk about where Australia rates. I want to talk about this excellent one-armed person who's kind of doing it before. And I want you to refresh my memory with their name in a second so I can Google them and bring them up. I want to talk about the technical aspects. I want to talk all about this, but can you talk about how did Cairns land this national championship? And my understanding is, like, from looking on the internet, there are people coming from New Zealand.
That was last time.
Yeah. Okay. So whomever is most qualified, please.
Can I start?
Yeah.
So two of my students, Amy Davidson and Jude Perrott, competed and won the group division of the Queensland and the Australian pole championships in 2014 and 15. And from there was really nowhere else for them to go. There was no other challenge for them in Australia. And at the time, because there was no Australian Pole Sports Federation to compete internationally and as part of the International Pole Sports Championship, they had to fly to the Netherlands to qualify. Germany to qualify, where they won gold again. And then they had to come back and then they had to fly to the Netherlands to compete at the Worlds, where incidentally we came out 8th in the world. And it was the last year that they were competing. They had mixed doubles. So they were competing against male-female pairs. The year after that, and from there on, they've split it. So it's now female-female doubles. And at the time, if they'd only been competing against women, we would have got 3rd. But, 8th is still good. We'll take it. So they came back. And Jude, being a phenomenal sportswoman, realised that Australia was really going to be left behind if we didn't form our own federation, left behind on the world stage. And so she very bravely founded it and, roped in a few other likely characters, Dave being one. So really it gives Australian pole athletes the opportunity to qualify without leaving Australia. Dave.
That is way cool. And look where your addiction has taken you, David. Just look.
Yes.
Wait, do you have anything to add to that? Oh, well, I'm sure you actually have. Well, I imagine you do.
Well, I mean, Sophia raised a very good point there, that which was one of Jude's concerns as well. That Australia was just going to be left behind. It's kind of interesting looking at the involvement levels in different countries and the countries that are actually very big on the pole scene. So the largest pole sports group was actually Mexico. They, due to some unfortunate circumstances, they had their registration revoked by the IPSF, but they're about to they've just come back in actually. So they're going to be a big force. No, it was more management issues, disagreement between federation ideals. But other places like Kazakhstan is very big as well. And then you get places like Russia, obviously, people who ex-ballerinas, ex-gymnasts, ex-circus people who can't, I don't want to say can't compete, but within the high end over there in those sorts of areas. But I guess they transition across because pole may offer something more for them. So yeah, Ukraine, Russia, and then Japan's actually very big as well. And Japan has a huge junior contingent, and some of their juniors are absolutely gobsmacking. Like, they're just insane. I was lucky enough to, because I'm a certified judge as well, I was lucky enough to go to Japan in 2018 and judge the Japanese national competition. So we did 103 athletes in 2 days. And it's one of the most outstanding experiences of my life. It was amazing. The Japan's junior competition is really strong. So Australia was just going to be left behind, and something needed to be done. And Jude has been an absolute champion driving this forward.
Wow, that is such a cool story, and it rings so many different bells for me. It's like, you know, us Aussies kind of like punching up, and we do a bit. And you know, this idea of the other thing that I just love, and Northern Vibe has really developed this in me. I used to be jealous of other, you know, and I know I hate to say this, but it's true. I used to be jealous of other humans' achievements. It's like, man, you know, you see someone that's always better at something and you always kind of like wish to do that. Now I'm just like, I just want to see other humans achieve. It's like, man, you go, you know what I mean? You go, you one-armed person lifting stuff up there. You go, Dave, kicking ass and like starting this sport in 2013, and you go, Andy, and you go, Sophia. You know, I just love seeing this human achievement, and when it mixes in, you know, with this, with all this, with a communion of humanity. And I know that sounds like a weird, trite thing to say, but it's validated by Vicky, who's a mate of mine in Bundaberg. G'day, Vic. And I'm going to read out what she says. Trace does, you know, well, she's talking about the different styles, so the conversation's a little bit behind. She talks about the different styles there, and it's that it's great for people with their confidence to get fit at the same time while making lifelong friends. And that validates everything that you guys talked about at the beginning with this concept of human achievement, of like people just like finding something and just going, you know what, I don't even have to be the best in the world. I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to join a communion of other human beings who kind of want to do that. And yeah, it is phenomenally, sorry, I'm just reading for the comments. You probably ascertain that. It's a phenomenally underrated sport, and it shouldn't be. Like, you need a ridiculous amount of strength to do it. Like, yes, totally. So, look, you answered a few of the questions that I was going to ask. So, you know, where does Australia rate on the world ladder? Pretty good, turns out. Look, it's kind of like I want to discuss some of the technical aspects now. So, Andy, if I can get you to grab your book. And as part of that, I do want to discuss, because like having lived
Once upon a time.
Yeah, mate, I'm obsessed with
In a pole studio, far away.
But while you're discussing this kind of like quickly and giving a broad overview, like don't get, like, remember you're talking to me, who's kind of thick, and you know, other people out there who kind of like, so give them a broad overview and please discuss the names, because that is so cool. No, seriously, like I'm not joking. And Sophia, after this is done, you can, you know, if you want to give the non-traditional names, I mean, that's kind of cool too. But like, you know, I'm big on normal culture. I think names are so cool because
names are very important. Names are very interesting, and yeah, you know, I think the names that we have in the the book here that I'm holding up is called The Code of Points. So this has a selection of moves that you can be judged on in the pole sports competitions. And yes, so it's quite interesting with names, because in this book a lot of them are very very technical and very this is the I don't know, this is a vertical split, and this is an elbow hold split. You know, it's very sort of square.
It might help if you bring up the picture on the screen.
So what I can show you is my here. So this is an example, a few examples of what you get in the book. So you have like that front split. And you have
bring it up. Hang on.
Leg through plank.
Whoa! I can't see it. Click on share.
Why did that not go through? Let me try that one again.
Yep.
I'm not a very accomplished Zoom person.
It's
so
okay, neither am I. Click
have
on
a
share
look.
screen.
There it is. So yes. Oh, no, it's still not going through.
Yes.
There we go.
Has that gone through?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so you can see split grip leg through plank. It's very descriptive of what it is. You are in a split grip, which is when you have the arms extended and the hands facing opposite each other. Your legs are through your arms and you're in a plank position. So it's very, very descriptive. And there's a variation on that shape, which some people might call a toothbrush. But yeah, I think the thing with names is that doesn't matter where you go, they'll probably have a slightly different name for a lot of things. So this one here generally would be called an Asia. Some people call it an elbow Asia. Some people say that this is not an Asia, that a different thing is an Asia. So it's a bit of a strange one. A lot of the not simpler moves, but maybe the more intuitive moves are named after the people who first displayed the shapes. So I know Sophia had mentioned Jamila DeVille before. She has a couple of names that she's moves that she's invented, if you like, and I think we need to use the word invented very, very loosely. She's the first person to display it and to put it in her choreographies and to show the world this move. And then a lot of people have then followed after and gone, this is cool. And so that's called a jade, for example. So it's the first two letters of her first name and the first two letters of her surname. You have, this is a butterfly. So that was named after a person again. So there's a few that are named after people. It's sort of an agreed thing because of the wonderful world of Instagram that we have now, where if someone makes a shape that no one else has ever made before, they get to name it. So similarly to in science, where someone might be able to name a spider if no one's ever found that spider before, etc. But I think it's very interesting to see how intuitive a lot of shapes are, especially when you see kids running around throwing themselves at pole. Every child climbs the same. Every single one, if you don't give them any tuition, will find the same movements because it is very intuitive. It's really magical. But no, I wanted to show you these examples of what's in the Code of Points, just so people can see the technicalities, the things that we're talking about when we say how strict the criteria are. You have to hold the position for a minimum of 2 seconds. You have specified points of contact. You have specified body positions, specified leg positions. So it's really wonderful in the way that it's very technical. And yeah, I mean,
So see, that goes to, please keep that up. But actually, if I can impose on you too, the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, can you see the 100% there? If you biggerize it just a little bit, it'll actually be a little bit.
Oh, this?
Yeah, yeah. So biggerize,
Okay.
yeah, see that? So that's cool. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. But the other thing is, it kind of adds to the discussion we're having before, the paradox between limiting something and developing it into something more perfect. You know what I mean? So, I mean...
Oh, absolutely. But I think this is something that for some of us, we have to be very, very humble about it. And like you say, just be very happy about other people being able to achieve things that you can't, and striving to achieve things that you've never been able to achieve before.
Yeah.
So having a goal, I think, is really important. Having a goal to say, okay, I need to do this move and I need to be parallel to the pole, or have a 180-degree split. I don't have a 180-degree split in most of what I do, but I'm working on it, and I'm splittier than I've ever been before because I have a goal. That's a word. It's a word.
Okay. Or you know what, we're gonna have to add that to the dictionary. You know, I bet Dave was choking at the choking to talk about the idea of like, look, I'm a science geek, although I'm not scientifically trained. I've never been to university or anything like that. I'm just a phenomenal science geek. I just love it. But I despise species names that are named after someone's daughter, like someone, you know, the Matthew Melonius Sassoni. It's like, no, dude, like do the traditional thing. If it's got boggly eyes, use the Latin words for boggly-eyed beetle. You know, like it makes it so much easier to remember. Because if you've got all these like weird species, I bet all the students out there just loathe people who categorize things, naming, you know, kind of like, oh, I'm going to name it after me or my daughter or whatever it is. It's like, no, name it after what it looks like. It makes it a lot easier. Normal culture matters.
A lot of the pole moves will have a descriptive name that is what it looks like a wrist sit where you're sitting on your wrist, which is also known as a hello boys, which incidentally is more memorable, right? Like the girls get a giggling class and the odd man, Dave. Yep, we do get a few male students through. But yeah, you know, I feel like when they can have a bit of a laugh about it, it's actually easier to remember.
There's actually a move called super pain, which is quite an accurate description of the move.
Super pain.
We love that one.
This has been so awesome. We're going for an hour, and I'm ridiculously tempted to keep going, but I'm going to really show some self-discipline. This is unusual. You talked about, and I'll get all of you to kind of talk about this, I suppose, but you spoke about there's a natural way that people just kind of climb, and they've got to be. Can you describe that? And
No.
it's the best.
There's a natural way that kids climb, because kids don't weigh anything. So kids will climb with their feet on the pole. Let me see if I can find the, oh no, it probably wouldn't be in here. But there is we call it a Chinese circus climb. Some people call it a monkey climb. But if you imagine putting your feet and hands on the pole and you sort of do that. Yeah. That's the very natural way that kids will try and mount a pole, because it's intuitive. As an adult, that's actually a very difficult thing to do, because you now weigh a whole lot more, and to require your arms to pull in that way and your feet to push in that particular way through the ball of the foot, it's very challenging and requires so much coordination that's not actually how we teach beginners to climb when we are teaching adults.
You can't leave me hanging.
Oh look!
Okay, no, because I always do that climb.
Let me take my laptop for a walk, and I'll do some demo if you want.
Okay, this is what I've been hanging for.
Just as a little grand finale.
Okay.
Knock knock. Sorry guys, I'm just going to steal this.
Because like anytime I climb a coconut tree or anything like that, like living in Papua, that's what I did. Still do it now.
So we have. I don't know how to position this so you can see the pole. There we go. We're going to position this way. I don't know, we can see anything at all. But this is a Chinese climb. So we hold here. All right. It's a little bit slimy, but that's fine. The little ones will just naturally put their feet on the pole and hold that way. As an adult, we climb this way.
Oh.
So then we're actually putting a lot more weight through a lot more of our body. I've got leggings on, so I'm not doing that very well. But we hold on with the hands and as much leg skin as you can possibly get onto the pole, because that's what keeps you on the pole.
Okay, so it's about the maximum amount of skin on the pole.
Absolutely.
Right, I'm seeing nodding.
Sorry, guys.
Dave, so that's yeah.
Okay. I don't have very good leg grip, so I tend to not involve my legs very much.
Okay, Sophia, you've been doing it for a while. What does it just come naturally to you now?
Climbing, yes. But then, I remember I've been polling for 20 years now. And I remember about 10 or 15 years ago, wondering if it was going to, like the the fitness fad was going to pass, or if it was just going to fizzle out, and it certainly hasn't. And it's quite the opposite. But I also remember wondering if we were ever going to find any new moves, and it's just exploded. Like, there are countless new moves coming out every day. You can't possibly keep up with them all, you know.
And I got to ask, and I promise this will be our last question to all of you. Can you walk past like a street pole without kind of like looking at it, you know, in a professional sense and going, you know, maybe like, well, what's it like? Because like, there's not many things that I can't, like, there are so many things from my previous profession I just can't look at in any other way. There's like, you know, so you look at it and go, I could climb that. Like, you know,
I can tell you the diameter of a street pole just because I know what other poles feel like, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a 60 mil.
So
yeah. Oh yeah, look, nothing is sacred ever again. Trees, playgrounds, you know, vertical bars, anything can be swung off or splitted on, you know.
Horizontal bars when you start getting real creative.
Yeah, yep.
Bike rail.
And to be fair, I think as a dancer and any kind of aerialist, you walk into any building and you check out the floor and the ceiling and, you know, what the potential space could, you know, be used for.
Absolutely.
Dave, you can't walk past the like kids' playground, a sense of monkey bars, and think to yourself, you know, maybe I could climb that sucker there if I just get my.
No, of course you do. But one thing age has taught me is that you need to warm up.
Yeah. So the brain is writing checks that the body can't cash. That's what I'm trying to
get. Right. I have a rule: no showing off, because if the quickest way to hurting yourself is showing off.
All right. Well, I'm going to do a couple of screen shares to kind of like plug all of you guys. So that's Pole Play Studios, obviously. That's Sophia's. And that's Andy's Pole Fitness. And here is Australian Pole Sports Federation. And it outlines the team and all the other stuff there. And there's obviously Dave's thing there. It's got the dates and whatnot on it. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to do it this Sunday, 27th of June, 9:30 to 3 p.m. Do yourself a favour, get your bottoms down to the Australian Pole and Aerial Championships at the Early Settler Cairns Basketball Stadium. I'm definitely going to be there, and it's free, it's cool. There's a crazy Polish girl who's going to be the first girl on the pole at 9:30. Yeah. So seriously, come down and support it, Cairns. You know, we've got to do this. It's been a massive win for us. A lot of work for Cairns people doing it. A lot of blood, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears. And it's going to be cool. You can watch other human beings doing magnificent, cool things. Have to be inspired and join it yourself.
Sorry, can I interject one last little thing?
Please do.
I always forget to mention this until right at the end. Anyone who wants to actually support the Australian Pole Sports Federation can become a member. Even if you're not an athlete, you can pay $10 to become a non-athlete member. And every single member assists the Federation in achieving its goal of getting pole into the Olympics. So if you are interested in pole, you can come and take a class, and maybe you can compete next year. If you're interested in pole just to watch and to support, then we do encourage you to even for you to become a member of the APSF. And is it still $10, Dave?
I think it's 12 now.
$12 whole dollars.
Ooh.
$12 whole dollars, but you can support the cause and yeah, help the APSF get to its goal.
Yeah, a beer at a nightclub. I'm thinking that's worth it. Hey, look, I know I said it was the last question, but like, is it going to become an Olympic sport? Is that going to happen?
Yes.
A lot of nods here.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it's well on the way.
Yeah, we're halfway there. So, and rapidly approaching 3/4 of the way there. So,
and I think people are interested. People want to see new sports where athletes can really demonstrate levels of skill, which is what the Olympics is about. It's about watching amazing people doing incredible things.
And
Yeah.
they're including pole sports and the artistic division, but pole in the Olympics along with aerial arts. So trapeze, aerial hoop, tissue, they're all going to be in with us, which I think is really cool.
And so look, I think that needs to happen. Look, I'm a soccer player, love soccer, great sport. But why have an Olympic sport of soccer when it's got a World Cup? Like, how self-defeating and ridiculous is that? Like, no disrespect, guys, get the hell out of the Olympics, make room for pole sports. Like, there's up and coming sports that need to be there. Like, you know, guys, you guys are paid billions of bucks a year, supposed to be, and to play anyway, they're supposed to be, amateurs. It's like, yeah, so you handed over the $1 billion you made last year to the Olympic Foundation. Yeah. Sure you did. But like, this is what needs to happen. These are the sports that we need to be watching. And I'd be glued. I would genuinely be glued. And especially considering that you guys were talking about where we actually rate, Australia would do okay, wouldn't we? Like, we'd be kind of medal hopes.
Deb Roach, that was mentioned earlier, who's an Australian athlete who was born with one arm. She is coming up for the competition this Sunday. And I should know what year. I'm sorry, I don't know which year, but she actually won the para pole division on the world stage at the World Pole Sport Championship a few years ago for Australia. And I've just been super impressed with her ever since. And I've seen her dance live twice before, and both times I completely forgot about the missing arm because she's a phenomenal performer.
Wow. And that's it. I'm glad you said her name, because now I'm going to screen share the heck out of this.
There's a little section on her on the Australian Pole Sports Federation website under history. There's Australians at the Worlds. And so there's a little section on all of the Australians who have represented at the Worlds.
Wow.
There she is.
Like, again, why aren't we celebrating the hell out of this? This is so cool.
So yeah, 2013, she competed at the Worlds and won.
Thank you.
Wow. That is awesome. Guys, thank you very much. We're going to have to wrap it up there. I'll get you guys to stay on for just a little bit longer. But to everybody, to all the listeners out there for Northern Vibe, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I had. It's been uber cool speaking to these ridiculously fit, ridiculously talented people who have that infectious enthusiasm. Like and share the heck out of this, okay? Like, if you enjoyed it as much as I do, like and share. There's only one way to kind of get it out. Follow Northern Vibe. You saw the Facebook pages that I put on before. If you just Google all those things, you'll be onto it. And $13, dude, that's a beer at a nightclub at an overpriced bar. It's certainly worth supporting this mob. So thanks very much. See you next week. I've got a couple of guests that I'm looking at. So I won't say exactly who it is, because one has kind of indicated he may or may not be able to do it. But I've got Dave coming up in next month. He's going to talk about his venom and stuff like that, because not only is he a pole geek, he's a spider geek. And I'm sure you don't mind me saying that. I mean, I'm totally respectful.
Fine.
Yeah, we're all geeks here. So thanks very much. Stay on. You guys stay on. And to all the Northern Vibers, we'll see you guys next week.